Hey y'all, it's WebCamParrot here, going over a new verse in that same old WebCamParrot style today. I'm sure this is somewhat unexpected because I literally never talk about Avatar, but I just happened to be working on this script with my friend Kratos, who helped a lot when we were writing this, and I decided that it was just too interesting of a concept to not feature on this channel in a video somewhere. A big thank you to Surfbone for his tremendous editing here as well. I've given him a few shoutouts on this channel before, but he does power scaling content as well. Anyway, as for this video, I think it's going to be a relatively unique, completely different sort of type of video about Avatar than I've ever seen anywhere on YouTube. I don't think anybody has ever talked about this before, and we're going to be taking a very close philosophical look at the exact way that bending works in Avatar, and also how each of the different martial arts relates to the bending styles. I'll be separating this video into 3 sections. In the first section, we'll talk about bending in general. In the second section, we'll talk about how the various martial arts work with and change bending, and in the third section, we'll talk about various subskills of bending, even pretty weird stuff like combustion-bending. Okay, so what do we all know about bending? Well, everybody knows that bending is based on the 4 classic elements of the world, and these consist of water, earth, fire, and air. But did you know that these bending arts are both located to certain cultures within Avatar, but real-life martial arts as well? Fundamentally, the way that all bending works is dependent on how the bender engages with these martial arts. Generally, water is Tai Chi, earth is Hung Gar, fire is Northern Shaolin, and air is Bagua, and we'll talk more specifically about these later in the video. However, the most bizarre and powerful bending art doesn't associate itself with martial arts at all, and is known as energy bending. As we just explained, and as it should be clear, the 4 main elements are based on a lot of physical action or movement in order to actually perform and generate the bending. This is shown when Katara, in Book 1, can't properly bend a specific type of waterbending form as she continues to mess up the movements, which Aang obviously demonstrates the correct form a few seconds later.
Create a big, powerful wave.
So, like this?
But this isn't true for energy bending. Energy bending is a spiritual art, and being good at it, or getting better at it, has nothing to do with physical capabilities. Being proficient with energy bending requires a certain type of inner strength, which is gained through things like meditation, self-reflection, or simply the drive to succeed. We see this most clearly with the most iconic use of energy bending within the franchise, that being Aang's ultimate climactic fight with Ozai at the end of the original series. Aang, who has a strict principle of never killing, is stuck between the need to end the threat of Ozai and obeying this principle.
I know, I'm even a vegetarian. I've always tried to solve my problems by being quick or clever, and I've only had to use violence for necessary defense. And I've certainly never used it to take a life.
Even the past avatars were compelling Aang to break this oath he had made to himself and end Ozai's life. It's here at the climax of Aang's character development throughout the series, the moment that everything has been leading towards, that he finds an alternate solution, that being energy bending. His spirit and will clashes with Ozai's in an attempt to take away his bending, and we see for a brief moment that Ozai's drive and ferocity protects him from Aang's spiritual intrusion. However, the tools Aang has picked up along the way, like his lessons learned from Guru Patik, his air nomad training, and the struggles that he had to overcome throughout his journey, prevail over Ozai's raw, untrained ferocity. Fundamentally, all other bending styles come back to the spiritual aspect and energy bending. We can then deductively figure out that the movement and action that we spoke about earlier is actually about instilling a certain mindset into your spirit. This is directly shown to us by Iroh when he's explaining redirecting lightning.
If you let the energy in your own body flow, the lightning will follow it. You must create a pathway from your fingertips, up your arm to your shoulder, then down into your stomach. The stomach is the source of energy in your body. It is called the Sea of Chi. Only in my case, it is more like a vast ocean. From the stomach, you direct it up again and out the other arm. The stomach detour is critical. You must not let the lightning pass through your heart, where the damage could be deadly. You may wish to try a physical motion to get a feel for the pathway's flow, like this. Now, are you focusing your energy? Can you feel your own chi flowing in, down, up, and out?
I think so.
Going back to the martial arts aspect of bending, each of the styles is inextricably tied to its martial art, and this is what makes the bending function the way it does at all. We can see this most clearly when Iroh is trying to teach Zuko how to bend or create lightning.
Waterbenders deal with the flow of energy. A waterbender lets their defense become their offense, turning their opponent's energy against them. I learned a way to do this with lightning.
He explains that it's necessary to incorporate ideas from other styles that aren't fire. Hypothetically, there could have been an entire culture that specifically used lightning bending, and it could be firebending that was the rare one. But because of the culture and best practices of the people of the Fire Nation, they can create fire instead. And this is what makes talking about the martial arts behind the bending styles so important, as they define them. Another way of proving this is when Korra struggled to learn airbending, and this was entirely because of this deeper spiritual component we were talking about earlier. These things prove that the lion turtles aren't powering the bending that they give to people. They just open up the right mindset to use it. This actually proves that bending is more fundamental than the lion turtles, and this explains the seeming contradiction between Legend of Korra and The Last Airbender. There's no reason that some people couldn't have learned bending from the lion turtles, and that other people could have learned bending through things like the badger moles or the moon, because bending is more fundamental than just a gift. The water tribes are a culture of adaptation, change, and community, as told to us directly by Iroh, if it wasn't obvious already.
Water is the element of change. The people of the water tribe are capable of adapting to many things. They have a deep sense of community and love that holds them together through anything.
You see, it was water that came to the tribe, not the tribe that came to the water. Waterbending, which is based on Tai Chi, lends itself towards this proficiency for change and flows. It can be ice, it can be steam, it can be liquid. Even liquid water changes shape to match whatever container it's placed within, and what could be a better example of adaptation than that? The water tribe learned waterbending from watching the moon, but the moon is everywhere, so why didn't anyone else learn waterbending? Because they didn't have the culture to know what to look for. Guru Patik seems to believe that the water chakra embodies pleasure and is weakened by guilt. This relates to the water tribe's philosophy due to their pleasure being defined by change. And if they're incapable of change due to holding on to guilt, they can't do what they love most, and that's change.
Earth is the element of substance. The people of the Earth Kingdom are diverse and strong. They are persistent and enduring.
Earthbending is based on a southern Shaolin martial art style known as Hung Gar. This style emphasizes rigidity, defense as offense, and perseverance. Most people actually mischaracterize Hung Gar in popular culture as being a purely brute force-based martial art, since students will spend years, spending hours per day, with a singular stance pose. However, it's much more than brute force, because it takes internal perseverance and focus in order to pay off. Within the style of Hung Gar, If the student doesn't actually focus their ki and acknowledge these things, the form becomes useless. These all make sense since rock is tough and hard. It's difficult to break. Rocks are strong, but it's also because it's tough and hard that it hurts whenever you get hit by it. Now, those of you that were paying attention to Iroh might have noticed something strange about what he said, that being diversity. Iroh claims that the Earth Kingdom people are incredibly diverse, despite this seeming to contradict what an individual rock is like. We usually don't think of rocks as being moldable. Instead of thinking of an individual rock, however, we should be thinking of rocks. So where other cultures might get caught up by a new wave of thinking, for instance, think about how regimented and homogeneous the Fire Nation is. It's completely caught up in its own nationalism. But in the Earth Kingdom, when a new idea comes around, some people have the stubbornness and persistence to not change their minds. This is what keeps the Earth Kingdom so diverse, as Iroh says. It's worth mentioning that Toph was intended to have her own style of martial art based on Chow Gar and Southern Praying Mantis. It could be said that Toph's skill is found in supreme patience. Toph waits for her opponents to make a mistake, like a rock, and punishes them for it. Rocks are really good at waiting. I've never seen a rock fail at waiting for anything. We can see this specifically in her fight with the boulder. This is additionally emphasized in what Bumi calls the Jings, specifically neutral Jing. And Bumi seems to be one of the only Earthbenders, other than Toph, that understands this.
There's positive Jing when you're attacking and negative Jing when you're retreating.
And neutral Jing when you do nothing. Neutral Jing is the key to Earthbending. It involves listening and waiting for the right moment to strike.
That's why you surrendered, isn't it?
Yes, and it's why I can't leave now. Your teacher will be someone who has mastered neutral Jing. You need to find someone who waits and listens before striking.
This is connected to how Toph developed metal bending, but we'll talk about that and the other substyles later. Guru Patik describes the Earth or root chakra as embodying survival and being weakened by fear, which makes sense when you consider the Earth tribe people's resilience.
Fire is the element of power. The people of the Fire Nation have desire and will, and the energy and drive to achieve what they want.
Firebending uses northern Shaolin styles, and what we just talked about lines up precisely with what Iroh just explained. Fire and firebending is about imposing on the other. It's about power and force. This is obvious as shown with the war started by the Fire Nation that The Last Airbender bases its story on.
If a fish lives its whole life in this river, does he know the river's destiny? No! Only that it runs on and on, out of his control. He may follow where it flows, but he cannot see the end. He cannot imagine the ocean. Before learning firebending, you must learn water and earth. Water is cool and soothing. Earth is steady and stable. But fire is alive. It breathes, it grows. Without the bender, a rock will not throw itself. But fire will spread and destroy everything in its path if one does not have the will to control it.
Inherent to firebending is a certain type of internal conflict, both between firebenders and inside the spirit and mind of an individual firebender. An example of the former would be the disdain shown toward Fire Nation citizens from the colonies.
Hi, Kuzan. I really liked that crazy dance you were doing.
Thanks, Anji. I can show it to you again if you'd like.
What'd you say, colony trash?
Iroh talks about firebending like this in one of the guides for the TV show. Quote, "We are often standing in our own way and we don't even realize it. Like a boulder damming the river it calls home. Fire burns, but it, and our anger, often gets in the way. We are not fire's master, merely its humble guide." End quote. We can see that this internal conflict is so central to how firebending works, that when Zuko self-reflected and conquered his internal conflict of his rage with his father and his pursuit of the Avatar, he lost his firebending.
I bet it's because I changed sides.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe your firebending comes from rage, and you just don't have enough anger to fuel it the way you used to.
He then had to find a new internal source for his fire, which he learned through Ran and Shao, the dragons. Firebending seems to require that you place a contradiction within yourself, and it's from this contradiction that the uncontrollable nature of fire finds its relation to the martial art. Guru Patik believes that the fire chakra embodies willpower and is blocked by shame. This relates to the Fire Nation's philosophy due to them imposing their will upon others. However, the shame portion of this seems out of place, because if anything, Zuko's shame regularly added to his strength and his willpower. Perhaps this has something to do with the inherent contradiction firebenders have at their center.
Air is the element of freedom. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom. Also, they apparently had pretty good senses of humor.
Rocks. Airbending typically uses Bagua martial arts styles, which involves being free and flowing with your body in circular movements, alongside being evasive and precise. It's well known for its wide variety of techniques and weapons training. This plays into the freedom behind the philosophy for airbenders. However, I don't think freedom is the most important part of what they're doing. We're lucky enough to actually hear from and get quotes from an air nomad academic, Guru Lahima. Throughout Lahima's writings, and what Iroh has to say about the airbenders and other hints, there's a constant reaffirmation of detachment from worldly concerns, and also the ground in general.
Have you ever read the poetry of the great airbending guru Lahima? What? Guru Lahima lived 4,000 years ago in the Northern Air Temple. It is said that he unlocked the secret of weightlessness and became untethered from the earth, living his final 40 years without ever touching the ground.
What makes airbending unique and different from the other bending styles is that precisely at its center is an affirmation of a lack of center. Airbending philosophy is all about being open to the impossible and bringing about new from the destruction of old foundations. This is why, historically, they are nomads, effectively constantly destroying their own idea of home whenever they leave.
Lahima once wrote, "Instinct is a lie, told by a fearful body, hoping to be wrong."
What's that supposed to mean?
It means that when you base your expectations only on what you see, you blind yourself to the possibilities of a new reality. Do you know who once said, "New growth cannot exist without first the destruction of the old"? The wise Guru Lahima, an airbender.
It's worth noting that Zahir has his own ideas that could be separate from air nomad philosophy, like his obvious fondness of anarchist ideals. But whether these are air nomad ideas or not, directly, he found this within their teachings, and it works for him. Guru Patik believes that the air chakra embodies love and is weakened by grief. This applies to the Air Nation because if you're weighed down by grief, you can't live freely. Now moving on to the various subskills of bending. Immediately we should clarify that the term subskills here means very little, because as we've talked about already, the four main elements are only thought of as the four main elements because they are popular. It's entirely possible that these subskills could have emerged as the main elements as well, if things had happened slightly differently in the world of Avatar. We've already gone over in depth how lightning bending functions as a blending of philosophies from other styles with fire. So we won't target that subskill here. However, there are other subskills like this, other elements that are a combination of philosophies from different styles. Lava bending seems to be a strange example, as the Avatar Extras states that it's an ability that only the Avatar can do, being as they would both be a Firebender and an Earthbender. However, we have examples of Soul Earthbenders being capable of performing this subskill, such as Bolin and Ghazan from Legend of Korra. It's also worth noting that the way lava bending is created is very different from the methodology Iroh used to develop lightning bending. This is because the mixing of earth and fire seems to happen outside of the abstract ideas of the two martial arts, and to only be a thing in the physical world. It's possible something spiritual is going on as well, however, we're never told. In the Legend of Korra art book, it's stated that Ghazan's lava bending martial art style is loosely based on Baji Quan, but Bolin, the only other prominent lava bender, doesn't use this style. And this style doesn't give us any clues to the philosophy of lava bending outside of its short and explosive techniques. The two earthbending styles, metal bending and seismic sensing, are interconnected. Metal bending can even be seen as just an extension of seismic sensing. This is because in order to bend metal, you are required to sense the bendable bits of earth within it using seismic sensing, as Toph does. During the episode where Toph first metal bends as she discovers the style, Guru Patik speaks over her while talking about the light or insight chakra. This is a chakra that embodies insight and is weakened by illusion.
Even the separation of the four elements is an illusion. If you open your mind, you will see that all the elements are one, four parts of the same whole. Even metal is just a part of earth that has been purified and refined.
Woo! Toph, you rule.
By using her seismic sense to pinpoint the traces of earth within metal, she's using an enhanced sense of sight, which would link to the chakra. It could then be said that seismic sensing isn't an earthbending ability at all, but rather a chakra ability that when combined with earthbending provides you with the ability to metal bend. This is, of course, directly connected to Toph's neutral Jing, which is what we spoke about earlier. She's sensing first, then waiting for an opportunity to show itself, meaning that at the foundation of metal bending in general is patience. The combustion subskill is one of the most bizarre and terrifying powers in all of Avatar. It seems to be considered a subskill of firebending, and it was Sokka who seemed to believe that Combustion Man was using his mind to generate and project fire.
This is crazy! How can we beat a guy who blows things up with his mind?
There's little explanation in the series or external sources for how this actually works, but I have my own ideas based on the chakras. Guru Patik describes the sound chakra as being located in the throat and embodying truth, yet being blocked by lies. Something interesting about Combustion Man is that he never says anything. In order for the chakra to become blocked, he would need to tell a lie. By not speaking, he avoids doing this, particularly as he is an assassin who would probably need to lie a lot in order to do his job. Combustion Man is neither a liar nor a teller of truth. On top of this, the third eye that he seems to use in order to project his powers follows the guidelines of the insight chakra as Guru Patik describes. Also, when Sokka hit this spot with his boomerang, it disrupted Combustion Man's chakra, making him feel dazed, which then caused him to self-implode. All of this makes me think that Combustion Man is relying on the flow of chakra specifically. Up from the stomach where fire is made, through the throat, which he doesn't want to be blocked, up to his forehead, which is what creates the power. The only other known combustion bender is Pali from the Legend of Korra, who seems to have no problems with speaking. This could be because she's more disciplined about her lies, or because unlike Combustion Man, she's not an assassin working for the government anymore and has less reasons to lie. We've talked about the bending styles that take inspiration from numerous sources, so now we'll discuss the arts that seem to be contained within one discipline. Bloodbending style is specifically based on the martial art known as Chin Na, a type of Shaolin Kung Fu. This style focuses on locking down the opponent's movements, then attacking their tendons and muscles. In essence, it's a style that embodies control over your opponent, something that of course fits very well with bloodbending. It's considered the highest level of waterbending and most horrific of all bending techniques. However, it comes with the cost of endangering the user's mental state. This bending form, when at its strongest, can be compared to Energybending in a way. Users such as Amon and Yakone are capable of bending using their light or insight chakra, alongside blocking the chakra paths of others without the use of any movement at all. This further proves what we stated earlier, that bending has more to do with a philosophy or spirit than physicality, as the most advanced water-style techniques can be generated with no movement at all if you're proficient enough. This also follows with combustion-bending, as it doesn't seem to require physical movement either. Spirit bending is a specialized form of a waterbender's ability to heal using water. This technique is specifically used against corrupted spirits, and in very dangerous cases can be used against humans with the potential to snuff out and erase their soul. Traditional waterbending healing can even be used to heal sickness, and in the case of Jet, it was capable of removing the brainwashing enforced by the Dai Li. Now, spiritual projection, similar to how bloodbending is a high-leveled waterbending technique, spiritual projection is a higher-leveled airbending technique, combined with some spiritual shenanigans. This technique allows the user to project their soul from their body, thus making them intangible. This technique is identical to the technique that the Avatar uses to travel to the spirit realm, but can also be used to simply roam the earth as well. Flight, like spiritual projection, is also a high-leveled airbending technique. The only known people that have been capable of using this art were Guru Lahima and Zahir. By detaching themselves from their earthly attachments, they gained a heightened ease of movement through physical space. This example of Zahir learning this ability is more evidence for the general argument we make within this video, as he was immediately very capable when it came to airbending, despite never practicing with it once. It seems as though it was just the small push that he needed to become a fully fledged airbender that separated him from being a master, meaning that it was more about the philosophy that he had learned regarding the art than anything else. We've explained energy bending in depth throughout this video, so now we'll only be going over the single point we didn't mention once. This involves Cosmic Korra, which is the big blue abstraction of herself which fights Unavatu at the end of Book 2 in Legend of Korra. When Korra had Rava stripped from her body, she then merged with her astral self, much in the same way that Aang did at the end of Book 3 against Ozai, and became Big Korra mode. After having entered this form, she was capable of spirit bending larger constructs, as shown with Unavatu, alongside being capable of projecting large beams of energy that matched Unavatu's. Presumably, anybody that was in touch enough with their own chakras could pull this off, but the only people seemingly to ever do this are avatars. There seems to be another ability that allows people to live for extended periods of time. This is explained in one of the novels by Lao Ge. This just seems to be as a result of meditation over long periods of time and proper understanding of the chakras. Lao Ge states that this is done by creating a mental inventory of your body. Then, when it starts to decay over time due to age, you can take the pieces of that mental inventory to heal your physical body. This, however, has the added problem of stagnating your growth, something that Avatar Kyoshi points out. There have been very few practitioners of this technique, of course Laogi, Kyoshi, and arguably Guru Patik. Guru Patik has survived to be 150 years old, Kyoshi survived to be 230 years old, and Laoge was around during the time of Guru Lahima, making him astonishingly at least 4,000 years old. When Kyoshi met the thousands of years old Laoge, he did appear to be very aged, and it's unclear whether his mental inventory was simply that old when he did it, or if there is a limit to this ability and 4,000 years is pushing it. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed the Avatar content. I may talk about Avatar again in the future, but in any case, I think the things that I talked about here completely change the way that we would think about Avatar going forwards. That it should be more about the cultures of the people and less about there being some kind of biological element to bending. Bending is a philosophical and cultural art, and that is what makes it such a cool series when it comes to the actual fights. Every single physical fight in Avatar, every bending fight, could also be seen as a clash of different ideas and philosophies.